Thank you very much for joining us today to launch what is a historic initiative. I want to begin by thanking the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, the Honorable Makau, for taking your time out of a very busy schedule. I know how busy you are to be here with us to inaugurate this process. So I thank you, and through you, I thank the Judiciary of the Republic of Kenya. I also want to thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto, for taking what is a bold and unprecedented step to leap into history by establishing this process, which is unique and which is singular in our nation and on the continent of Africa. I also want to thank the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, who has expressed unqualified support for this initiative. I want to thank the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who has been a champion of victims in this country and who has spearheaded, together with the President, a national healing process. And this one in particular, he has been a singular voice calling for compensation of victims. I want to thank also the Attorney General, who has been very helpful to us in prosecuting this particular initiative. I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury, John Badi, who is supporting us with treasure, obviously, very important. I also want to thank the Ministry of the Interior and National Administration, and lastly, the Head of the Public Service, Mr. Philip Koskei. And I want to express, obviously, my thanks to all the oversight bodies and constitutional commissions who have sent their very highly qualified individuals and staff to join us in this effort. So I want to express that thanks. I also want to, since now the panel is seated, Honorable Makau, if you permit me, I want to read their names because they are now members of this panel so that they can stand up and be recognized. It's a historic moment. I want to begin with, of course, my Vice Chair, the able and fearless Faith Odhiambo Morning. Please stand up and be recognized. I want to call upon Mr. Kennedy N. Ogeto. Mr. Irungu Houghton, Dr. John Olukuru, the Reverend Father Kennedy Barasa Simiu, he is praying for us, Dr. Linda Musumba, Dr. Duncan Ojuan, the Gen Z among us, Ms. Naini Langus, Dr. Francis Moraya, Ms. Juliet Chepkemei, Mr. Pius Meadow, Ms. Fatuma Kinsey Abbas is not here, but we recognize her as well. Mr. Raphael Anampiu, and my good friend, Mr. John Maina. You may stay standing until I finish reading the other names, please, if you don't mind. Our technical lead, the incomparable Richard Barner. The co-technical lead, Dr. Duncan Okello Ndeda. And of course, the individuals who are going to make this machine move, Ms. Jerusa Mwathime Michael, Dr. Raphael Ngetich, and Ms. Daki Guyo. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Yeah, please, I forgot to mention Churchill Suba. Where are you, Churchill? Okay. I don't want to make that mistake. I just want to say that, history is written and told by those who live it. It should be done that way, not those who don't live it. And I just want to say that today, the people of Kenya, through this panel, are writing and living their own history. I want to say that this particular exercise is an installment, if you will, in our long journey to become a nation, to go from being a country, a government, a state, to become a nation. That is irreversible. Our focus today, however, is a narrow one. It is on protests and demonstrations and how we perform them in the context of our Constitution. And I want to say, and make this very clear, protests and demonstrations do not have to turn deadly or violent. They do not have to turn deadly or violent. For the purpose of demonstration and protest is for the people's voices to be heard. And the people's voices can be heard without violence or death. In many countries around the world, as you've all seen, citizens protest all the time. And they do so peacefully. And after the protest, they go home in one piece and safely. Our purpose here today is to turn the page and to start writing a new chapter so that we can establish the fact of peaceful protests and demonstrations as a Kenyan norm, so that we can perform Article 37 of our Constitution, which is one of the heartbeats of Kenya, on assembly, on demonstrations, on picketing, and on petition, which have at times turned deadly. We can turn that article into the lifeblood of our democracy. We know that the violence that has taken place has taken lives of civilians, of citizens, the majority of whom did nothing wrong but to turn out to express themselves. We also know that a number of our law enforcement people, without whom there is no country, have also suffered. And I want to make sure that people understand that the law enforcement people are also our fellow citizens. They're our children. They're our brothers. They're our fathers. And we equally feel for them, those who have been affected. Why are we undertaking this initiative? This initiative launches a national process to transform our political and our human rights culture around the rights of assembly and speech. It is just but one limb of transitional justice: compensation and reparations, institutional reform, appropriate prosecutions and accountability, access to justice in the courts, which my able vice chair has talked about, and law and policy reform. These are the other limbs of the transitional justice matrix. I want to echo my vice chair's emphasis that this particular effort is victim-centered. It is impartial, and it is non-partisan. It is apolitical. It is not an exercise in political expediency. It is a heartfelt exercise in which we intend as a country to lead not just with the head, but to lead with the heart. I admit and I concede that this exercise is not a replacement for criminal investigations or the oversight by the bodies that are mandated by our Constitution to conduct that process of oversight. I want to assure that where evidence warrants, matters must be taken to court through the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and other bodies. I want to emphasize also my firm belief that this work complements the mandate of IPOA, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. It does not seek to replace it or to usurp it. It supplements the work of those institutions, including the work of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, of the National Police Service, the NPS, of the Ministry of Health, and I'm glad to see Dr. Denda here, of civil society, and of our faith communities. I want to outline what our operating principles are going to be. We shall be guided by the very concept of Ubuntu, or human dignity. That I am because we are. That the loss of one life is an irreparable damage to a society. The principle and the norm of fairness, of non-discrimination, of equal protection under the law, of confidentiality, and of due process. We shall conduct evidence-based verification of victims, be they fatalities or be they those who suffered life-altering injuries. And we will do this primarily to deter fraud and to protect the integrity of the scheme that we have launched today. We shall be guided by the principle of inclusivity, in which, as I have said before, in which civilians and officers alike, those who are harmed by actions outside the law, will fall within the scope and the mandate of this panel of experts. The big picture is that this exercise is unprecedented in our country. It is bold. And I want to say that the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. Judge us by what we do, not what we say. Judge us by what we do, not what we say. We will talk less so that our actions can speak louder. Our goal is to break the cycle of violence in this country. Let me repeat that. Our goal is to break the cycle of violence in this country so that we can entrench a culture of peaceful, rights-respecting protests. You know, in my other life, I live in New York. And almost every other day, protesters are just passed outside my house, chanting, saying, down with this person, down with that person. I have never seen a shot fired against them. They shout, sometimes they shout themselves hoarse, and they go home, having made their point. So that's what we want to do. We want to get to that point whereby we can go out in the street unarmed as civilians, because that's a requirement of Article 37. Protesters cannot carry arms or weapons. Protesters cannot attack property or their fellow citizens or law enforcement. We want to make sure that both protesters and law enforcement abide by the norms of civility during protests. I want to invite our friends in civil society who have expressed some reservations at times. We know that the majority of civil society friends support us, but some are skeptical. We ask them to give us a chance. We ask them to walk with us, shoulder to shoulder, so that we can prove to them that indeed we can deliver for the people of this country. We want to ask our faith leaders to come along with us and indeed to pray for us. And we want to ask our professional societies and organizations, including the Law Society of Kenya. Faith is here by herself. She's not the Law Society of Kenya. But we want to ask her, and through her, to bring the Law Society of Kenya to the table to help us. It is not a job for just the committee that's assembled here. And we want to ask all Kenyans, governments and citizens alike, to rally behind the work so that we can heal as a country, so that we can learn as a country, and so that we can reform as a nation. Before I close, I want to ask for a minute of silence. If you can all stand up. I want to ask for a minute of silence for those whom we lost and those who were injured. I ask you to bow your heads in respect. I ask you to be seated. Let that moment of silence turn into an eternity in memory of those who are lost and those who are injured. I want to close by saying this, that the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Samoei Arap Ruto, has given his personal commitment to this panel and to us and to me, that this will be a just, a transparent, and a compassionate process that honors our victims, their families, and their loved ones. It is the only pathway to strengthening our democracy and to building a resilient country that cares for its people, its citizens. I thank you all.